Sounds like a ton of fun in here. I am so glad that you're here this morning. And for those of you who are in the chat room, had a chance to greet you. So glad that you are worshiping with us. My name is Andrea Smith, and I have the amazing privilege of being the pastor here. And it's been a few weeks since we've been together in worship. We had a few No Huddles days. We're in the middle of our Not Afraid to Get Dirty series. It's our gratitude series that we do every year around the time and season of Thanksgiving. And what we're focusing on today is gratitude and the journey of gratitude and how it changes us. We've been doing a gratitude journal. There are daily meditations that we've been doing to go along with it. If you've been receiving those, great. If you haven't, if you stop by our info station or our first-time guest tent and let us know, we are happy to get you hooked up to receiving those. You can get some fancy swag. I joke that this is my favorite series all year long because I do not have to worry about what to wear. And it's a very forgiving, that was funny. It's a very forgiving shirt as well, so we invite you to get some swag and wear it around. Also, there are opportunities, there are intentional opportunities throughout the month that we try to have a very focused impact with our community partners that we have all year. We're a missional church. It's why we worship in a high school. It's why we don't invest a lot of money in facilities and fancy stuff. It's why you see risers on the back of our auditorium stage this morning. And we met with a drama teacher last week, and he shared with us, he was apologetically saying, hey, we're getting ready to do this really big musical, and there's no way that we can take it all down. I'm like, look, we've worshiped in Times Square. They had the whole thing decked out like Times Square one Easter. One Sunday it was Romeo and Juliet, and so they had the whole staircase. We're flexible. We're a missional church. And so this week, we are going to be doing something really cool at South Elementary. South Elementary is in downtown Mooresville, and they are over 50% free and reduced lunch with their kids and their population. The PTO approached us after we hosted the Back to School Bash here and in Old Fort last late summer, and it seems like a decade ago, but they were like, hey, we don't have any partners with our PTO. Would Wes be willing to walk alongside us? And then Dawn and Lane met with them, and ironically enough, the PTO president is one of our Amped families. She's like, oh, you're that church. And so that was really cool. So Thursday of this week, we are feeding them a Thanksgiving meal. They asked if we would be willing to help them do that. They're willing to help us, but I'd like for us to do the heavy lifting for that. We're getting several of the items from Lowe's Catering and got a great deal from them on that, but we have some items that we would love for you to help participate so that Dawn, Lane, and I are not making 900 deviled eggs on Wednesday, because right now that's what it's looking like. And so we're going to text you the Sign Up Genius out one more time this afternoon. Sign up for something if you can do it. And you know what? If you work and you can't get it done that day and you can do it the day before, let us know that and we will accommodate you. We can warm it, etc. But we really want this to be a first great impression of us partnering with them. So I invite you to be a part of that new relationship that we are forming. And there are other opportunities. The last one of the series is going to be the Turkey Trot, which supports Mooresville Christian Mission in downtown. It is our leading nonprofit that helps families that are in need, and they walk alongside the families. Mooresville Christian Mission is so important to our community, and the Turkey Trot is one of their biggest fundraisers. We have a team, so you can scan the QR codes. You can go to our website, our Facebook page, and find out more information about that. But we're really excited to be in the Turkey Trot as well. And darn, I hate that I am in New York, upstate New York, visiting my family, because I do not do 5Ks. I do not run unless you're trying to kill me, and even then, I'm not sure I would run. And I am so darn competitive, I refuse to be last. And that's why I just don't ever go. So I like for you to go, however. So if you can support the Turkey Trot, please do so. And just be a part of Mooresville Christian Mission. Online folks, if you're looking for a way to get involved in these things, you can make a donation. You can sign up on the Sign Up Genius and just make a donation monetarily. Some folks have already done that, and that helped offset the cost of the catering for the meal at South. We want you guys to feel just as much a part of the community as the folks here in the room. Really am am excited about the message today. It's going to be about being cured or being changed. And I hope that we walk away with some new things to think about. So thanks for being here. So we've been talking about how to change our reality, how to make our lives better, and gratitude is the way. That's why we've been doing the gratitude journal. If we will take intentional moments each day and just think of 3 things that we can be thankful for, even when it stinks and even when things are just sort of falling apart around us, it will change us. Eventually, it will be our go-to. It will be our norm. When we are in the middle of difficult circumstances, we will acknowledge those, we'll sit in those. If you have missed the messages that we've shared in this series, you can go back on our website and watch. That's what I talked about last week, like how to be fully present and how to unclench our fist and regain a new posture, a posture of gratitude, even when things are difficult. It talks about like naming it, not trying to ignore it or be in denial. Denial is not a good place to live because eventually the things that we're denying keep surfacing. So it's okay to acknowledge that things are not okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay not okay. And gratitude can help us change that. I had the privilege, and I do mean privilege, of turning 55 on Wednesday. Someone sent me a text and said, happy speed limit birthday. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, it took me a minute. I'm like, yeah. 54 seemed okay. Something about 55, I'm like, oh. And then, I started thinking about, retirement. People retire when they're 65, so 10 years left. Oh, my gosh. And all these thoughts and feelings started coming, and I would prefer to be in the school zone birthday speed limit, but that is not my reality right now. So, on Wednesday, and I do mean this so sincerely, all the Facebook posts and the text and the calls and the stuff left on my desk, I feel like it's been a month of Andrea because I had walking pneumonia. The PAC team rallied around me and cooked meals for me. The staff, Dawn and Lane, cooked meals for me. That was so kind. And then it was Pastor Appreciation Day, which it ought to be Church Staff Appreciation Day because the staff work just as hard as I do, but the vision team gave me cards and were so thoughtful, and then it was my birthday. So I'm like, wow, this feels good. I like all the attention. And then I realized that was sort of funny, and you didn't laugh. I don't feel like you owe me that. But what happened in all that was on my birthday, as the Facebook post came, I took intentional time to sit down and go through them. And I know it may seem stupid or silly, but it does take intentionality to wish someone a happy birthday, especially on social media. I started teaching school back in 1992. It was a long time ago. And one of the first Facebook posts was from someone that I went through our residency and teaching, our first year teacher training together. And she wished me a happy birthday. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And then folks from the first church that I served, where I began my career in ministry, those folks were wishing me a happy birthday. And then college roommates that I haven't spoken to in years. And then many of you. So Wednesday afternoon, I'm like, I want to say thank you. I really want to say thank you, not just put on there, oh, thank you for the birthday wishes. I want them to know how much this mattered. And so for an hour Wednesday night in my head, I spent intentional time coming up with a post that I was going to put on social media of how to say thank you. And I was wrestling with transparency. Do I admit it's been a sort of funky fall for me? I've been a little bit in a funk. Things are just challenging in different aspects of my life, trying to navigate it and find balance and figure things out that seem like a giant puzzle right now. I've been a little bit in a funk, not depressed, but in a little bit of a funk. And so as I read the pastor's appreciation cards and I read the birthday wishes, like, I was moved. I was reminded I have a community. Even though sometimes it may feel like I don't, because I get in my head and overanalyze things and think about all the things that are going wrong instead of thinking about the things that are going right. Like, there are people that are living out their call to be followers of Jesus in and through West, and for that I am so grateful. Because it is a privilege to be not only a pastor, but your pastor. And all those folks that have been a part of my journey from the beginning, from when I taught school, like, all those things have added up to culminate to us being here at this time, in this place. And I really wanted to say thank you. And I wanted to say, hey, you helped me not be in a funk. Did y'all see that post? No. If you did, you're so not telling the truth right now. So that's awkward, and I love you for trying to support me. So that's what that is. That's the whole point of today. Like, I did nothing. I did nothing. And I'm still thinking about it. A few weeks ago, in the middle of a Tuesday, I got one of the kindest texts from someone that's one of our leaders at West, and just said, hey, just wanted you to know that what this church does matters. We were in the middle of pouring 300 candles, not exaggerating, for our part-time Soul Creations thing, and so I read it on my watch, and I didn't text them back till yesterday. They probably thought, okay, so glad I gave her all those words for her to not even reply. Do you ever do that? Do you ever think about doing something, like you want to do something, you mean to do something? There's a joke, the highway to hell is paved with our best intentions. You ever do that? I did it multiple times over the past couple of months. And I'm not alone. And you aren't either. So I want you to hear this story from the Gospel of Luke. Luke was a physician. And when he wrote his gospel, he was trying to appeal to all of the people, those who were hurting and those who were scorned and those who felt left out. But he's also writing to the religious people. And so as Jesus encounters this group that we're getting ready to read about, it's a powerful, powerful story. And we can find ourselves in this story, each and every one of us. So I want you to hear this story. It's taken from Luke 17. And it is the parable of, or the story of the lepers. It happened that as he made his way to Jerusalem, he crossed over the border between Samaria and Galilee. So before I go on, I actually want you to take a look at the picture of Samaria and Galilee. Like, they are side by side, and that line up at the top of the screen, that border between Galilee and Samaria, that was what was known as no man's land. All the Jewish people, in the religious minds, the good people, they lived in Galilee and Jerusalem. The bad people, the scorned people, the people you would not sit with at lunch, at the lunchroom table, you would not go shopping with them, they would not be your Facebook friends. They were the Samaritans. And you didn't like them if you were the Jewish people. They worshiped differently. They worshiped in ways they weren't supposed to. They married the wrong people. They intermarried, which was so wrong in the eyes of the Jewish people. And no one wanted to be around them. So Jesus is making his way, and he's walking in no man's land between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men who were all lepers met him. They kept their distance, but they raised their voices, calling out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. I want to show you a picture of what this would have been like in that time. It's of a village. And you see the people that are standing off in the distance and then the one person standing alone. That is what it would have been like in no man's land where the lepers hung out. And they didn't just choose to go there. If you go back to Old Testament writings and the Mosaic law and those laws, especially in the book of Leviticus, if you read Leviticus chapter 13, you'll find all the criteria that the people with leprosy had to live by. It was not just a skin disease. If you had leprosy, you basically were suffering from a social death. You were ostracized. You were put out in this no man's land space. And all the lepers would live together in a colony. Now, we lived through a pandemic a few years ago. And I want you to think about like back when we were wearing masks everywhere. And when you had COVID, it was like, oh, wow. Okay, you had to quarantine. If you were in your home, you had to be away from everybody else. For all those folks that were living alone during that time, I was actually. And when you got COVID, it was even lonelier because you're completely by yourself. There's not anybody else in your space. Now imagine that a couple of thousand years ago times infinity, because there were all these laws about it. We had guidelines and rules, but there were laws. Like if you had leprosy, you had to wear torn clothing. You couldn't just sport your finest duds. You had to visibly show to everybody that you were inflicted. So they had to wear torn clothing, and then their hair had to be unkempt. So they couldn't comb their hair. They had to basically look like they were a problem. And then, this part, I think, is just the worst. You see, when Jesus is walking, they're like, hey, Master, Jesus, have mercy on us. That is a special greeting that they had in that time, in that space, signifying that they'd heard about him. There was something different about him that had permeated that community, and so they knew to call on him. But any other time that anyone came within even a remote distance of a leper, they had to stand there and yell, unclean. Unclean, over and over and over again until the people went away. I thought about making you do that. I thought that'd be really sort of cheesy, so I decided not to. But think about it. Like you have to stand there in front of people and yell, unclean, unclean, unclean. Do you know what that had to do to their psyche? So here are these people, these 10 men. They have no way of earning a living. They have no way of being around their family. If they were religious, they could not be a part of their religious community and support system. They had nothing except one another in no man's land with a disease that they found it very difficult to cure. And here comes Jesus. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And then listen to what Jesus did. Taking a good look at them. What do we do when we see folks that are different than us? Do we see them, or do we just see them and then go on? Think about the people in your life, in your close circles, in your fringe circles. Do we see them? Jesus, being Jesus, saw them. Go, show yourselves to the priest. Now, let me give you a little context of what would happen when a leper would ultimately get healing. the first thing they would do, because back then the rules were set by the religious authorities and the rules governed the communities. Remember, they're living into the Mosaic law and the rules and the laws that are laid out in the writings of Leviticus, the Old Testament law. And so the first thing that you had to do if you were healed was you had to go to the priest. And the priest would give you like your papers saying, it's all good. You're clear to go. You can go now. You can go back to your community, your family. You're okay. So Jesus says to them, go. Show yourselves to the priest, meaning go show the priest that you are whole. Now, it's weird though, right? Because we don't see that he healed them. We just see him saying, go, show yourselves to the priest after he's looked at them. He hasn't touched them. He hasn't said, I heal you. He hasn't said, you're going to be healed in a few days. He just says, go, show yourselves to the priest. So the fact that they go says something about their faith. Like there's something about this man and the power of his words that just changes things. They went, and while still on their way, they became clean. Isn't that cool? So many times I just think, religion gets stories like this so messed up because we lose the beauty and the simplicity and the power of Jesus. He saw them and he says, go, show yourselves. And because of this movement following this man, this simple, homeless, nomad man. Because of that reputation and that power, they went. They didn't ask any questions. They didn't ask for him to like write on paper, hey, I gave them permission to come see you. They went. Sometimes I think it's so hard for us to follow because our faith gets so fragile when life gets so hard. They were living a crap life. It really couldn't have been much worse. But because of their faith in Jesus, they went. And while they went, they were healed. What another powerful message for us that sometimes our healing comes while we're on the journey and on the path. So think about that for just a second. What kind of path are you on? What does your path and your journey look like? Sometimes our healing comes while we journey on our paths, not even knowing how it's going to end. The guts it had to take for them to start out on that journey, to go to the priest who were going to scorn them if something didn't happen while they were on their way. So if you're on a path today that's difficult or challenging, or somebody you know is on a path that's difficult or challenging, just remind them that sometimes the healing comes while we're on that journey. And that the healing power of Christ, it's not just there at the beginning or at the end, it's every step of the way. Even if we don't know where we're going, and even if we don't know, like these guys, how it's going to end. While they were on their way, they became clean. Now, here's where it gets a little dicey. One of them, when he realized that he was healed, turned around and came back, shouting his gratitude, glorifying God, and he kneeled at Jesus' feet. He was so grateful. He could not thank him enough. And he was a Samaritan. So let's unpack that for just a second. One of them, while he's walking on the path, realizes like, oh my gosh, I'm healed. Oh my gosh, I am healed. And he stops in his tracks and he turns around and he runs back. And he throws himself at Jesus' feet. Different translations say it differently, but every single one of them say that he literally throws himself down and kneels at the feet of the one who gave them the gift. Glorifying God, praising God, and thanking God for what he received. And then Luke throws in there that Jesus points out. Oh, and by the way, he, the one that came back, he was a Samaritan. That would have been a little scandalous because remember, the Samaritans were not the good people. They were not the people with the pretty clothes and carrying their crosses, and well, they wouldn't have had crosses back then, but anyway, you get my point. They would have not been the good church people. They would have been the folks just doing life and loving God in the best ways and the only ways they knew how. And that was the guy that came back. Now listen to what Jesus does. It's interesting, like we don't see Jesus going, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Were there not 10? It sounds like something I'd do. You give me this amazing gift, I'd be like, are there not 11? Like, he couldn't thank him enough. And Jesus said, were not 10 healed? Where are the 9? Can none be found to come back and give glory to God except this outsider? And then he said to him, get up on your way. Because what has healed you and saved you, that's your faith. His exact words in Luke are, get up on your way. He didn't mince any words. Your faith has healed and saved you. So I want to show you 2 different Greek words this morning. One is katharizo. That shows up in verse 14 here when they first get healed. And then sozo. That one shows up in the verse that I just read to you, verse 19. Healed, the katharizo, when it's first mentioned in this that the 10 were healed, it just means like you go to the doctor, you get some antibiotics, and you're better. You're healed. But sozo, your faith has made you whole. Your faith has sozo. You are whole. You are, if you are familiar with the term saved in Christianity, this is the Greek word that is used over and over and over again in the New Testament scriptures that Christians and theologians translate to mean saved. And it means whole. It means transformed. It means made complete from the inside out. Salvation, saved, transformed. You have been made whole because of your faith. And that's the end of the story. It's really easy to villainize the 9. But I want us to think about that from a different perspective for just a few minutes. Think about it. And go back to my birthday illustration that actually came across as very egocentric, and I did not want it to, but it did, so my apologies for that. But, you've been missing out. Of all the things that you hold so dear for so long, you can't see your family. And probably for some of these guys, it had been years that they had not been able to be with those that they love. They have not been able to be employed. They have not been able to earn a well-being, a lifestyle. They didn't have one. They're just there in this community, and when they say, have mercy on us, it shows you that they have formed their own community of lepers because it's all that they have. Now, when something really good happens to you, there's this thing, it's a psychological term, it's called a scarcity mindset. And sometimes the spaces that we've lived from in our lives, they've been icky at times, or bad, or tragic, or traumatic. And because we've lived through difficult times and seasons and spaces, when something good does happen, we're wired, like we've been talking about wiring our brains for generosity and gratitude. We're wired to think, because we've been through so much crap, that it's going to stay crappy. So if you've got this one glimpse at goodness, you better go full steam ahead. You better clench onto it. You better hold on to it, because you just don't know how long it's going to last. It's one of the most difficult lessons I had to learn after a divorce that just wasn't exactly where I thought my life would end up. And then I met this really cool, actually, we were friends first. I did his daughter's wedding, and we just got to be friends. We bonded over Richard Rohr. I met Tom, whom at some point soon we will marry, and I'll spend the rest of my life with him. I love him dearly. But, buddy, he had to live through some crap when he started dating me. And that's not self-deprecating, that's true. Because I had no idea the places of pain that I had. Apparently, I was living from a place of abandonment because of my mom died and my dad doing the weird stuff he did, in his later years, and even after my mom died. I have abandonment issues. And lots of therapy has helped me unclench my fist. I want you to take a look at a picture of clenched hands versus unclenched hands. And I want you to think about yours. When I first started dating Tom, he'd be like, "You're holding on too tight." And he didn't mean literally. He's like, "Just let go. I'm not going to hurt you." And I'm like, "You don't know that. I could be crazy." He's like, "I know you are. I like you anyway." And the like grew to be love. I'm not exaggerating. Those are legit conversations. I held on so tight. Those 9 that had been given this gift of wholeness and being cured from the things that kept them from experiencing life, they grabbed it and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've got this now. Let me go." Now, one was probably working on their TikTok reel and showing how great their life was. One was probably going and applying for jobs like, hey, I can come back now. One was probably going to see their family. One was probably going back to their church community and being like, I can be a part of you again. We have no idea what they were doing, but let's not judge them. But let's learn from them. Let's learn that when goodness comes, and I would challenge us to see that in every situation, no matter how bad, how traumatic, there's always somewhere in it that we can still see God. And we can still see goodness. Open your hands. It's a real thing. I wrote about that in one of the devotions this week. I talked about how Dawn, who is our Connections Catalyst here, she has this most beautiful prayer posture. When we pray in staff meetings, she opens her hands. Try it the next time that you have a difficult situation in life and you feel icky about it. And you feel your emotions and you know that things are just difficult. Just open your hands. 9 of them didn't know to open their hands. And they were trying to hold on to the goodness that they had been given. 10 of them, 10 of the lepers, were cured. But only one of them was changed. 10 of them were cured, but only one of them was changed. I heard a quote this week, and it said, behavior is a language. Think about it. Behavior, it's a language. We have English, we have Spanish, we have French, German, Greek, Aramaic, Hebrew. We have all these languages. Behavior is a language. My behavior around the birthday wishes, the language of that would say that I either don't have time or I don't care enough to thank people for taking a few minutes or seconds, whatever, out of their day to wish me well. It couldn't be further from the truth. I was so moved. And it actually gave my little funk a little lift because it made me think about all the goodness in my life. It made me think about the courage to leave teaching 30 years ago and go into ministry. And it reminded me of the courage that it took to leave a church that I love dearly in North Morganton to go be an associate pastor at a church in Mooresville. Which reminded me of the courage that it took when the conference said, we'd like you to launch a church. And it reminds me of the courage it takes to lead in a culture where church just does not have the relevancy that it used to, and trying to figure out so hard how we find relevancy and meaning, but still follow Jesus. And I was reminded that that whole journey, God was on it, in it, and goes before it. And if God is doing that for me, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God does that for you. 10 were cured. 1 was changed. Which are you? Let us pray. Gracious God, you heal us. You bring us salvation from the inside out, transformation, and we are so grateful. So many times we operate out of scarcity mindset. God, forgive us for forgetting to open our hands. Forgive us for holding on so tightly because we're scared that goodness might not come again. God, thank you for being such a God of grace and giving us beautiful examples like this story. God, help us be the one that lives out of a state of gratitude, the one that comes and throws themselves and makes their language their behavior. Thank you for being such an amazing God, and we are so grateful for you. Move in us and show us your path and your way. In Christ's name, amen. I invite you to stand and sing. There is, I'm so excited about the end. Your song, I love it when Gary sings, and the music's so powerful. Rob Coles is a part of West. He volunteers at our bash every year. He went to Old Fort to serve up there. He is Amy Coles. If you've been a part of West, she's our assistant to the bishop. I call it vice bishop because she's not a secretary. She is the assistant to the bishop. She calls West her church. Amy and her brother Rob is going through a stem cell transplant right now and is in quarantine in the hospital and going to be there in quarantine for several weeks before the stem cell transplant, getting chemo to hopefully kill all the bad so the good will take over, and he's alone. And so I told him that we would pray for him, so I want you to do that. I want you to remember Rob Coles and do that every day and just pray that he feels the peace and the presence of God. 9 of the lepers got exactly what they asked for. They got mercy. 1 got more than he asked for. He got salvation. Unclench your hands and receive the goodness of God that will follow you throughout your path and journey. Go in peace.